Doing a lot of talking. Okay, it's Monday. It's the 8th. I'm happy to see you all. Glad you're here. I have been doing my best to, just like you, staying up with your assignments, which all of you have done a really great job on. I really wanted to start the day by saying that the work that all of you are doing is really wonderful. It's wonderful. And I feel like there might have been a lot of redundancy. Are you feeling like there is a bit of redundancy with the brainstorming stuff? Courtney's nodding. Everybody else is not commenting.
It's made me go forward.
Makes you go forward.
I mean that's not a bad thing. It's just really
pushes you ahead.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Looking ahead of what there is.
Yes. Yeah, it makes
That's
you.
What it's done to me is because once I figured it out, then I can run it.
That's exactly it. All right. Did you all hear Susie? So, like Jordan, I think you went way down the road, right? In your head?
Yeah, I just wanted to get all of like the foundation stuff done, so when it came to design, I could just have fun with it.
Okay, you nailed it, just the way both of you said it. The whole purpose of this is to lay your foundation as clearly as possible. And for many of you, you've been incredibly thorough. For some of you, you may not have thought of the minutia. I'm going to use the word minutia. Well, last week we had a conversation on everybody has a story, telling a story. That was confusing for some people. Is that confusing for people now? Anybody in here about how your company needs to tell a story? Or there's a story behind your company?
I just couldn't find any direction on the materials online, so I guess maybe it was in the lecture.
We did. We talked about it in the lecture. Well, there are materials online.
I saw some articles.
Yes.
Which I looked at, but it didn't direct me as what I was supposed to.
Oh, you were supposed to tell a story. It's just that, it's really that simple. Tell your story. And that should be part of your brainstorming. It wasn't how to tell your story, it was to think in terms of your company story. And I suppose we talked about that last week. We talked about how everything starts with a spark of an idea. And that's kind of where I want to head today. I want to emphasize a couple things. So you look down the road, like Jordan said, by laying this foundation, she's looked down the road. And the more you craft your brand, bless you, the more you craft your brand, the more you can tell the story. Don't tell it only in your head, but tell it on paper. Because as you write it in your own words, not words that you pull off a pre-existing website, right? Some of you are using companies that already exist. So for example, Jerry, I'm talking specifically about, bless you, about REI, for example. Don't go to REI's website and pull down their story and their information. That's their story. You're developing your own brand. And if you're picking a company that already has something existing, don't tell their tale, reinvent their tale, reinvent their story. And as you start to develop all the elements of your business, you're going to have to think them through. So what was an example?
Make a story.
Well, you need to tell your story. You're not... I worry that I'm not explaining it clearly to you, so I want to try and explain it clearly. And I didn't know if that video last week was a disconnect or a connect when I showed that working girl video. Did you guys understand how, was it a connect for you that one person, it was Bo, that one person was able to say, oh, and I thought of this, and I thought of this, and I thought of this, and then I took all those 12 things, and then I came up with this. Who knew all those things would lead to that? Where the other person stood there and said, yeah, I just thought it was a good idea. But every idea starts with a seed. Every idea starts with a seed. And as long as that seed grows within you for your brand, you're going to be able to naturally tell a story of it. So let me take your solar company, Courtney, for example. It's an existing company already, correct? Okay. But you're going to market it. You're going to take that company in a unique way for you to develop the brand. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So you have to develop a story unique for you. And what I find is with this opportunity, for each of you, this opportunity for each of you, you got to kind of own it. You got to own your company. So if your company is about solar panels, is yours solar panels? Is that right?
Installation and maintenance.
So, and is
Servicing.
that, are you invested in it because you have a potential client for it or a friend, or you just like it?
I mean, I was trying to fix something, so that's what I went with.
Okay.
I
All right.
was interested in the sun, the imagery.
Okay. So there you go. So for you, you get to think of what imagery is going to come as a result of marketing this type of brand. But you still have to develop the passion for what it is. Like, why solar energy? There has to be a personal component, I imagine, to you where you feel like that's our future.
Well, of course.
Right. Okay, there you go. Of course. So figure out what the story is you want to tell. If it's a cosmetic line, where there's a bajillion cosmetic lines, or if it's an outdoor company, there's a bajillion outdoor companies. So what's the unique component to what you're doing? You're not going to remarket REI. It's too big of a brand. So is there an arm of REI that you focus on, for example? Or do you take your hypothetical business of, what do you call it, the something journey, the new journey? Do you take your hypothetical business instead, the new journey, and decide what makes that different than REI and Patagonia and an outdoor company?
If similar to the REI, but not real company, I can make own story.
Yes, yes, you
The
can.
original.
And I think for you, Jerry, I think that would be really great. And so everything has to be in your words, right? Not taken from something else. So, and I'm trying to, so for example, Asia's got her own company that she's been doing for a really long time, and she's developing to take it larger. And she knows her story. Like, if her story is her real story, your story, right? When you told your story, it's like, well, this is what happened. And that's the seed of your idea. You were able to talk about, well, and then I thought this, and then I thought that, and then this is how I want to take it national or international. And then you need to troubleshoot it, how it's going to grow, right? What it's going to mean as it grows. So that's what the foundation is for all of this. So what I want to continue to discuss is, there's a link here to this website, which I started developing, and it's a very incomplete website. I just want to be really clear. It's incomplete. It's not well thought out. It's kind of what I consider as my back door to get us the resources we need in one location in case Canvas is down, which I think has happened to each of you. Well, we've had this semester already. At least it did to me, right? Canvas was down, yeah. So this is not complete. It's not finished. And it turns out now, because I put so much energy into sequencing everything here, Canvas is more sequential for you. So let that be your guide and resource. The only reason you really need this website here is if you want to get the video archive link up here to our video lectures. That's really the only thing you're going to find here that you would need to focus on. All right? And that's why I haven't removed it yet. But also what you'll notice is we don't stop at assignment number 9, for example. To look ahead, there will be more assignments added and more benchmarks. What we've laid here is the groundwork. So where we're at now is everybody should have developed their mood board and their mind map and put together their mission statement and told their story. Mission statements are short and sweet, and they're not a sales pitch. They're really just what you pivot your company on. They're like, if if you have a mission statement in your life that you follow the golden rule, so everybody doesn't know what that means, the golden rule. That's a cultural thing. Do you know what that is? Okay, I thought. That's a US thing, I think. The golden rule is do unto others, take care of other people as you wish to be taken care of. Love other people, be kind to people, whatever it is. However you want to be treated, that's how you should treat other people. Isn't that the golden rule? Is that right? All right. All right, so that's kind of universal. So a company, for example, would have something about that simple. So if your company is, I'm going to take Jordan's for a second, which is, Jordan starts with a seed of an idea of outdoor wilderness is amazing, and I was terrified of it because I didn't know how to be an outdoors person. And then I learned, after experience in the outdoors, it's not so terrifying, and it's more amazing than I even thought it could possibly be. And shouldn't the world all have that kind of awe and opportunity to experience that type of outdoor lifestyle? And my company is going to make sure that we instill it into you. How'd I do? Is that fair? Okay. It's beautiful. You articulate it really beautifully. So her mission statement, and this isn't what she used, but I'm going to pick mine from what I just said. Creating the opportunities for each person to experience the awe and wonder of the outdoor world through education and I probably used the word opportunity already, but education and opportunity. And that's a simple phrase. And that doesn't define what product line she has necessarily. It doesn't define how things go on sale. It doesn't define whether it's an online business or a face-to-face business. It's just what the company pivots on. And that's a mission statement. I've seen many companies have mission statements that are really short. And then in addition, a lengthier mission statement. You know, they might call it their mission statement, or they might call it their purpose. Because a mission statement is different than a tagline for marketing also, which you'll end up developing as well. And that'll come out of all these descriptive words you keep using. So what I just wanted to point out is, ultimately, we're going to move ahead and include all these things. And these are all going to be your creative work. And all the creative work is done like everything else you've experienced, which we're going to start with all right, now let me back up one more step. All of the work you create, we talked about this last week, is going to go into your design brief. It's going to include your brainstorming, your process, your narrative, your thinking out loud, your visuals, all the stuff you accumulate to develop your ideas go in your own personal design brief, and you should just add page 1, page 2, page 3, till you get to page 1000 when you're at the end of the semester. And if you keep it in one consistent design brief, one with multiple pages, maybe different sections, or a header, chapter, or section divider, whatever you decide. Once you've accumulated all these consecutive pages at the end of the semester, you're going to write a summary page about the process and how it went for you all semester long, press the button, export a PDF, and that design brief for the end of the semester is completed because you maintained it every day of the semester, right? So every benchmark that you upload that PDF, starting with this past week of visioning your brand, should be your design brief for your company, because you're talking about a specific company now. Not the ones you researched, not the 5 you compared. You're talking about your company, your branding now. That's starting this vision, mission, mood board, mind map. That's the beginning of your design brief for the semester, okay? By the end of the semester, everything will have gone in that container. You will have a separate book, final project, which is the style guide for your brand. And that's what you're developing all these elements for now. But your brainstorming doesn't go into it, just the final results of it. That's clear. We talked about that last week, right? Okay, I just want to be really clear. Is there any confusion about that for anybody? Okay. So, I think I've mentioned this a million times before, and I have to make a can't remember if it's this one. It's not. I did this last time where I got lost. I got to find just that one page where there's absolutely countless style guides for you to select from. And maybe that was the page, and that's why I was so frustrated. Study. I'll find it. I'll pull it up. What I suggest you all do, and I will find it, I will emphasize it, is I suggest you start researching on the internet different companies and look for their style guidebooks and decide what format you like so they can be your mentor for what your style guidebook might look like so you don't recreate the wheel. Okay? We've looked at different examples. We've had different examples. I can't remember, unfortunately, right now, which is why I got to pull it up again, what lecture resource we have for it. And this is my fault. I don't want to spend our time doing that now. But you can easily Google brand standards, brand guidelines, and look at different companies and see how they handle it. And emulate that if that's what you want. Or you can start, you could recreate the wheel from scratch. I will ultimately have a list of everything that needs to be included in your brand guidelines at minimum, but you might wish to include more. Okay? Everybody's cool with that. All right. So where I want you to go today and to look ahead is I want to talk about logo design, because at this point, all of you have already basically decided what your mission statement is. You might refine it. You might find that where you started with this kind of not walking down the road so far yet. You might decide you need to refine it as you go, and you have the latitude to do it, okay? It's your company. And also keep in mind what the marketing materials are that you're going to need, that you're going to want to use for whatever your company is, for example. Who's doing smoothies in here and fruit? There you go. I was thinking about you today when I was reading your visioning statement, and I was thinking how some of your printed materials might not be about brochures, but they might be about a menu. Okay, right? And so if you're going to create a menu and you're going to invest all that energy in a menu, I wonder where you'd have a menu project. So think ahead of what the materials are that you're going to start to develop and what resources need to arise. So as you accumulate all this, your brain is constantly thinking down the road, right?
I kind of cheated last night because I went ahead on your assignments and you list, like, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I'll show you
And
all.
I cheated, and I looked at the list.
It's not cheating.
Well,
it's what I want you all to do.
It helped me.
Right here, ad campaign. That's
Yeah,
where you went.
It helped me visualize.
Well, right here.
Okay, here's your choices.
Right.
What's going to apply, what's not.
Here you are.
Yeah.
So where you're going to head after you've created your brand, right? After you've created your logo, after you've created a stationery package, your company probably isn't going to need print stationery, but once you start to develop a print stationery, and you don't have to print it, so you have an unlimited budget, so you can think of in terms of the front and the back, and you can think of all of the elements. Once you start to process what's in front of you, even that visual of stationery, it's going to now mirror what the brand looks like for your website, for example, and it's going to mirror how your package design looks. And what this is what Susie said she looked ahead at. You're going to develop a complete, so let me go backwards here before she got to that, which is why it's here. You're going to develop your logo. That's next. That's up next. You're bringing them in next week. And it's a lot of work to it. All right, we'll go over that in a minute. And then you're going to start to consider typography and color. Well, you've already done color, right? But you haven't really applied it yet. You haven't gotten serious about it. Image guidelines, well, gosh, you already started brainstorming images, right? So you're going to continue this. It's all just going to build on it. But then ultimately, where you head for the rest of the semester, after you've nailed the logo and just simple brand stuff, is you're going to create these categories. You're going to create print media. So you're going to create at least 2 different print media. So that's why I was thinking of you, Karina. Well, print media for me, if I had a smoothie company, might be a menu or an informational brochure about nutrition, because that's your company, right? Once you write the information for your brochure or your menu, you now have what you put on your website. Do you see how this all just grows? It's just like it totally lays the groundwork. Or let's say your company is, yours, Jordan, where you do education and outdoor opportunities. So I'm not quite clear if there are tours or people can book groups, or I don't know how you've applied it yet. But, well, maybe that means that you go to a trade show for schools and you sell your program to schools. And you go into different schools and you sell outdoor education to secondary level kids. Or you go to corporate whatever and you do corporate outdoor stuff, because if parents do it, kids do it, right? I mean, I don't know how you think about it, but you might decide as you look ahead, as Susie's talking about, decide what you want to showcase your work. Let's say you want to work with a big corporation and you want to know how to build trade show booths and design for trade show booths. Well, now's your chance, right? Or let's say you want to go into fashion and you want to do a fashion magazine spread, and you know you're going to go into Vogue and you're going to go into, I don't know fashion magazines anymore, but you're going to go into fashion magazines. And then those fashion magazines aren't necessarily what people are buying on the newsstand anymore. Then there's fashion websites where you're going to place ads. You're going to buy ads to place on Facebook for fashion. That's going to link you to your website and so forth. You're going to decide all these marketing materials. So what Susie said as she looked ahead, what might I wish to do? And then decide, don't think what's easiest. Decide where you would want to get a job. Decide the kind of design work you want to do. Do you want to be a print designer? Do you want to be a print designer? Do you want to do direct mail, or do you not want to? That would be in conflict if you're an energy efficient company. Doing direct mail to me feels offensive, because now you're creating a footprint on the planet, and the idea is to not create a footprint, right? Decide how you want to be, and then you're going to do social media. You'll do viral advertising. You'll create some kind of video or something that would be able to be transmitted and forwarded and transmitted and forwarded. And then guerrilla advertising, which is basically something that shows up and catches like wildfire to become, it's a little bit like viral advertising, but it shows up in random places. It's, it's unexpected. And this helps you think ahead.
Well, this did just to put my mind ahead, and then I did honestly find a mock-up for stationery.
Right.
And I started applying what I was thinking, because it helps significantly to see, because I'm a very visual person with everything. So I'm actually going to include it on the assignment.
Right.
Because it helps me. It made me make the decision of
what to include.
What
to include. So you can start to look at this as product mock-ups. Well, okay, so you get a letterhead, the front and the back. You're going to have what your home screen is on your mobile devices for your website. You're going to have a business envelope. You might have a note card. You're going to have business cards. You might have an imprinted USB drive. I mean, you can look at stuff. For this class, nothing is going to be necessarily printed unless it's something environmental, like let's say you do a menu or you do a brochure. Yes, you're going to print it and trim it. because you can't Photoshop the heck out of it. Maybe you decide that, I'm trying to think of all the other businesses. Lily, what's your business? Glow Cosmetics. Maybe you decide that all of your maybe you decide that you develop an invisible makeup and you create a brochure that has a circle punched out of it, which is called die cut. Everybody knows this, right? You might not know that yet. So you've seen things with holes in it that's printed. It's called die cutting. You punch out the hole. And maybe your ad campaign is, we have this invisible makeup. It's so sheer you can't even see it. And because people are going to wonder why there's a hole in the page, right? So it's going to draw attention to it. So think about interesting ways that you want to do something and think ahead, because that's where our lab time in class is going to guide you, because you're not expected to know how to die cut. You're not expected to understand unique papers. I have cabinets full of stuff I'll show you on papers and bindery and so forth. So just think ahead and think how you want to present it. So, but to start with, telling a story. So does anybody have any questions about this? So that's Susie looking ahead. I'll have more specific parameters built into each of these things. But the truth is, as long as you meet all this criteria of the elements, you're going to define what the parameters are of, let's say, a brochure. This is not a class where I'm going to say your brochure is 8.5 by 11 folded into 3 parts. It's a 3-panel brochure, because that may not suit your company and you'd be bored to tears. The idea is that you think beyond that and come up with more brilliant ideas and inspiration. Does that help everybody a bit? Are there questions about any of that?
I actually have a comment. I don't know what graphic designer you in fashion other than fashion inspiration.
I know. I understand that, and we should talk about that really personally, because I know you've picked this really broad category of fashion industry, but you didn't pick a company. What was your company? Right, and he's a designer. He's a fashion designer. So I assumed that you wanted to remarket his fashion. So what would a graphic designer do for Alexander Wang? They'd make magazine ads, they'd make billboards, they'd make posters, they'd make a trade show booth which would show all of their new fashion. They would send out special invitations to the most elite department store buyers of some elegant elitist invitation to come to some big fashion. I just saw that movie, what's it called? Crazy Rich Asians, is that what it's called? And this movie is over the top because it's about opulence and over the topness with abundant money for this family. And everything was fashion based and over the top and bajillion-dollar weddings and all this kind of stuff. So because Alexander Wang is elitist and high-end fashion, right? Then you're going to throw, let's say, an elitist high-end fashion party on the top of, and they had a wedding on the top, what was it, in Singapore? Jerry, what's the building? Do you know the building in Singapore that has 3 buildings and a big terrace at the top? You don't know? No. Okay. Anyway, it's amazing. So they have a wedding on this terrace that overlooks, that's like I don't know how many floors in the air. Anyway, so you get to visualize that. You get to make an invitation for a special event. You can make ads. You can make, help me, you guys. What else? Hang tags for the clothing. What else? Posters to put on the streets or display in stores or magazine spreads and social media, contagious social media, or
Instagram site.
your Instagram site, or all of a sudden, what's it called when people, a flash mob, when they have flash mobs and people start playing music or doing a dance routine or something like that. Maybe you have a guerrilla ad. You know what a flash mob is? You're in an unusual environment. You're like on State Street and you're standing there and you're sipping your Starbucks coffee, and all of a sudden out of each store along the street, somebody starts dancing and singing. It's called a flash mob, okay? And it's orchestrated. They orchestrated it. Does anybody else not know what a flash mob is? Sheila, this is for you. Hang on one second, Courtney, I see you.
What about the tags that are on clothing?
Right, hang tags. Perfect. Exactly, hang tags. I'm going to pause this video. You can't connect it to Alexander Wang. So what would happen if people were in a plaza like that and you sent out a bunch of Alexander Wang models? Have you ever been to a restaurant where models walk around modeling the clothes? Have you ever been to a department store where when you're eating lunch, a model will come tell you what they're wearing, how much it costs, and they'll model it for you? No? Have you? Anybody? Pardon me? Where? It's lots of places, Los Angeles. So I grew up experiencing that. I go to lunch with my mother and my grandmother. We go to a restaurant in a department store, and people would come around the table and they'd model their clothes and tell them what designer it is. And we'd then keep eating lunch and say how pretty it was, and that was that. And so the reason I say something like that is, who's to say that you couldn't? Have you ever been to Los Angeles? Have you been to the Grove? By Farmers Market, the Grove? Or the 3rd Street Promenade by the beach where the pier is?
Yes.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about, whole row of stores. So who's to say that you couldn't send a bunch of Alexander Wang models out to each person telling them, yes, I'm wearing an Alexander Wang? That would be considered viral advertising, or guerrilla advertising, right? Viral if they're taking a video and watching it for the bajillionth time, but guerrilla advertising because it took them by surprise. So that's what a guerrilla advertising might be. And so for print, you're going to create maybe a catalog of all the fashion for print. And for print, you might have magazine fashion ads, and you might have you might have billboards, and you might have posters, and you might have hang tags, and you might have the little sewn-in labels on the back of each garment, right? But for that, it's all about the fashion. You might have a TED Talk about, I don't know anything about Alexander Wang, but you might have a TED Talk about Alexander Wang, how his great-great-grandfather used to be a tailor in Wang, last name, so that's Chinese, right? Chinese Wang? Yes, he's Chinese, okay. So how his great-great-grandfather was a tailor in China, and only so-and-so he used to sew for so-and-so, and that's his story. You can make this up, I don't care, right? And that's his story. And maybe he does a TED Talk on making something out of nothing. You follow me?
Our ads that we're doing, that you're talking about, the TED Talk or the Gorilla, are we just writing this down?
You're gonna fake it.
What do you mean fake?
So if it were a TED Talk,
Uh-huh.
pretend. If it were a TED Talk, then you would pretend. You would convince me through how you would visually represent that. So if you did that moment here, let's pretend we're at 3rd Street Promenade. Most of you know what that is, right?
So we write, let's pretend, and we write the story.
No, you Photoshop, you fake it out in Photoshop.
Oh.
Here's a screen cap. Here's a snippet from the video of Alexander Wang models, whether they're wearing it or not. You're going to fake it for me.
Right.
and it's going to be part of what you've got. It doesn't have to be faked. You know, your products are, tell me again what your products are. Yeah.
It's a tea house.
Tea house. Okay, so for your tea house, you have real tangible things you can get your hands on.
Do a tea in the park.
There you go. You could do a tea in the park. You could maybe just set up a teeny tea in the park and fake that.
Mhm.
Or you could be, you know, like the world can be anything. You could be that you want to bring a level of sophistication to people who may not experience. Let's say your tea house is a white linen tablecloth tea house like Mariage Frere in Paris, right? Does anybody know what I'm describing? I don't even know if they're white tablecloths.
You could randomly all of a sudden have, if you had a bunch of servers all come out and offer people the teas kind of thing.
It's like having the piano 2 blocks up the street on State Street, where somebody sits down and can play the piano, right?
Mhm.
That's a moment that gets created. So maybe what your moment is on 4 corners, you set up white linen tablecloths and you serve your tea, right? I mean, I'm making this up and it's dramatic, but it can be, what's their dining room look like? I don't even know what their dining room looks like. Here, white linen tablecloth dining room for Mariage Frere. There you go. I wasn't too off, was I? And that's all they do is tea. They don't do coffee. And, you know, or maybe your charity work is that you knit tea cozies and you distribute it around the world so everybody could have a pot of warm tea, right? I don't know what it's, you guys can decide anything. That's why I don't want to put parameters. You know, Susie looked ahead here, but I don't want to put parameters on what each brochure is supposed to look like or each billboard is supposed to look like, because it's your campaign and you're going to decide what's authentic, or it's your future and you're going to decide what you wish it to be and where you want to focus. Some of you are going to be more driven to website design and social media. Some of you are going to be more driven to corporate. You're going to have to decide what it is. Did that help explain that for you? So you have no more problem, do you? No, right? Is that true? Sela, you said, I have a problem. I don't know what graphic designers do for Alexander Wang. Do you now know what they do? Okay. A lot, exactly. If it requires designing and it's not about designing the clothes, but promoting the clothes, that's what graphic designers do. Okay, all right. Anything else while we're on that little avenue? No. Okay, then what I want to talk about is to get you started on logo design, which is very thorough and very elaborate. And right here, there's an assignment for logo design, and there's this video here. So if you're not familiar with how to build a logo, there is a 5-hour video through lynda.com narrated by Nigel French. Smile, Jerry. Okay. narrated by Nigel French to help you learn how to build a logo. Okay? Because we're in an advanced class, this is how we do it. Now, if you come in and you don't quite know how to pull something off, but you have all your concepts, that's different. I recommend for each of you that your logos get built in Illustrator. I also recommend, and your logo is obviously going to come as a result of all this research you've been doing, the story you tell, the mood board you created, the color designs you've developed. You decide whether your logo is a symbol, whether it's logo type, whether your logo always includes your tagline or not. You decide how it's going to show up, and you're going to sketch it first, and then you'll execute it from your sketches. You'll develop it digitally. You'll take your thumbnails, then you'll develop it digitally, and you'll come up with 3 final logos that you've started to taken from rough sketches to digital, 3 final logos that you create and develop digitally, and evaluate. Now, one of the problems I see with most logos is Your logo might be a favicon. Remember when we looked at stuff and said, what's a favicon? And it's that little canvas symbol right here that looks like a flower. That's a favicon. So a logo might convert to a favicon, or a logo might be on the side of a billboard. A logo might be embroidered on a baseball cap. A logo might be, you know, on t-shirts. They might be on hang tags. You have to decide how the logo is going to play out and how big it might be. It might be on a mural on a building in downtown, here on the side of the Granada Theater, your logo. So remember, your logo is going to go from this to this, and how will it communicate itself in those variations? That is going to be part of your style guide too. What number of colors is it? Will it show up in only black and white or a single color? Will it show up in a multiple of colors? Is your logo shown like the UCLA Heart Media? How many varieties are there? I mean, just take a look. Here's one color stacked logo, one color, one line logo. Here's a two color logo because this gray is a tint of the black. Here's the stacked logo. One color logo here, primary logo up there, logo on black, logo on white. Can you see how many variations you would put in your style guide as you develop your logo? So what you're going to come back with next week is really what you've distilled your logo down to, and we'll discuss it, see if it works. But again, your logo has to tell a story. Yeah, Katie?
Oh, I was just checking when you're talking about the three sketches and the three logos, you're not talking about three different ways to do like you're talking about here, the stacking.
Three different concepts.
Okay, good. That's what I thought.
Yes. And you don't have to come back next week with all these variations. Because what if we say, you sure you want that logo? What if we do that, right? If we all talk about it and we say, you know, I really like your previous two. Why did you choose that one? So where I want to head right now is just to simply talk about logos and type and logo design, which is really critical. And I don't want to read this through to you, but for most of you, I make an assumption when I give these lectures that you've already had typography. I make an assumption you've already thought about designs and layouts. You already know that there's psychology about type and what it means to us. And I think that in this class, I already talked to you about my two Palm Avenue logos, right? In this class? Yes, okay. And so what you have to consider is, what's the message when you pick a typeface for a logo? And what I find for most students is they'll pick a typeface for a logo. They'll type the logo, the company name, and they think that's a logo. No, it's not. It's a typeface that anybody can locate and anybody can use, and there's not one thing sacred about that logo by using a typeface anybody can download anywhere. It's not. So the question is, how do you make your logo unique where nobody else is just going to go download Garamond and type a company name and that's a logo? It's not. What are you going to do to differentiate it? I mean, what this tells you is if you pick a serif font as the foundation for your logo, there's stability, like Yale University, like the New York Times, like Time Magazine, like the Gap. Serif fonts create stability, they have stature, they have a foot to them. The serif is the foot, firmly planted, right? That's what makes serif logos so powerful. And the fact that they have a Roman serif to them makes them feel like a step back in time to ancient, solid eras. Then you look at a slab logo right here, and that provides a boldness, a solidness, a confidence. They don't look old, but yeah.
Wait, so are these or are these not logos?
These are logos.
They're word marks.
They're logo type.
Okay.
Or they're word marks.
Okay.
A logo can be an icon, a graphic, which is why I think you look confused. Is that right?
No, because just going back to what you were saying, but you can't just choose a typeface and have that be a logo. But you're saying it's a typeface included with like
the story included with the color, included with like everything else. And adapted. I did a logo for this company called Sound Eklund. They must have had me tweak the O, no, the N. I probably spent 8 hours tweaking an N. All the other type was the same, but they didn't like the N, and they wanted it thinner, thicker, fatter, taller. I mean, it would take a microscope to know the nuances of why that N looked so different. I thought, shh, okay, it's okay. I'll do it. What the heck? 8 hours on the N, whatever. And you might decide that you find a font and you like every letter in that font except for one doesn't feel right. And you might decide that you take it and you manipulate the type just a little of that font because you can have at it and do whatever you want with it because you're going to make it that word mark. You're going to make it unique to that company. And these typefaces here are not necessarily what you're looking at here. Like, I don't believe that they weren't hand-lettered type, to be honest. This little article just says, hey, you know, if you look at Courier, that's got a serif and that's a slab, and that's just suggesting it to you. This article is actually more for lay people to think about typography than anything else. Each of these logos, I guarantee, are a unique type to Sony, which is why there's a registered trademark there. Okay? And then you start to look at something really classic here, like how they used Evian, which might be Helvetica, but might be adapted slightly and then incorporated with a graphic. And that is a unique logo that makes it unique to that company. Or Chanel, if you associate Chanel, you know that's Chanel typeface that you're familiar with, but you also know that there's a Chanel logo that goes with it, right? Miss Fashion back there, right? Chanel, you got to see here and you got to see here, right? That's the Chanel logo, right? Everybody can visualize that. And that would be the logo type, and that you might decide here's the logo type, and here's the word mark, and here's the logo itself. And then you start to look at something like this, and you could be sure each of those, again, are probably hand-lettered, or they've been adapted, like Cadbury. I don't know what font that is. I don't even know that I could find it, because my guess is somebody drew that and created this echoey backwards forwards link. And so as you think of your logo designs, I personally think every logo has to tell a story because it's the voice of your company. And you better be able to tell the story of your logos. So here's Modern. You can all look through it yourself. I'm going to move faster through it. And again, there's type in these logos, but there's also a graphic component to them, right? Which makes them unique. And here you start to get a little deeper here, and there's a company called Innocent Smoothies. And okay, I get the halo part. I'm not sure about the smoothie part. Like, is that 2 straws? I don't know what you guys need to help me with that one. Does it look like an apple to you? A cut open apple, you think, sliced with the seeds?
It's a monster.
It's a monster. I know. It looked like a pig snout with a halo over it to me. Okay, because I used to do these tests called Droodles, and one of them was like this. And here would be your picture, and it would be this, and it's like, okay, what is that? Does anybody know what that is? Well, the correct answer is it's a pig emerging from the storm. A bird, right? And there's I have a whole book on these, and they're so old. I can't tell you how old they are. I came across the book the other day. Or you take a look at the Tropicana logo, which maybe did find a typeface, but then added this drop shadow to it and dotted the I with a leaf, because Tropicana is all about the fresh fruit. So you might take a font that you do find, but then you might adapt it to something unique. Or you take a look at Pepsi, and maybe this is a straightforward font, but then what Pepsi did is they took that wave that shows up in the little Pepsi beach ball, whatever you call that, and that same wave went in the Pepsi E, right? So I want you to think, and then why did Pepsi put that wave in there? And then think about their marketing taglines. Wasn't it Catch the Wave? Pepsi, that was an ad, Catch the Wave? Okay.
I drink Coke.
All right. All right. Or is it supposed to look like a peach ball because it's fun? Or is it red, white, and blue because it's really America? Because Coca-Cola already took the red part, so we got to be red, white, and blue. I mean, like, what's the story behind it? And then you come to, I don't know what TUI is, but here's MailChimp, where they have a little logo of this chimp, and it echoes the name, because we've never seen the word MailChimp before. It's not a word like our eyes will easily read. So they put the monkey there, we see mail, and we're like, oh, MailChimp, I got it. And then we can't forget it. And then we start to look at FedEx, which of course everybody knows looks like straight old Helvetica, or Helvetica extra bold. But then you look at the relationship of the letters here, and you see how the X and the E make the arrow. Everybody sees that one, yeah? The hidden meaning in logos. And that's like way brilliant. And that doesn't just come from, it doesn't come from nothing. It comes from self-talk. It comes from your self-talk of what does FedEx do? What's their mission? Okay, their mission is to get things there and get them there fast. So they go in directions, right? So you start to associate all these things, and you start to decide what type you're going to use. And then here, of course, beautiful steps here are things we've already talked about. You've already done. You've already identified your brand. You've already identified your target market, who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with old people, your logo better be super readable, better be clear, better be concise, better not be too confusing, right? Better not be too small. And if you take, I don't know, if you look at this MailChimp logo, I don't know that it translates so well very small. Does it? I don't know. So what you have to do with your logo is see what it looks like if it's the size of a postage stamp, right? See what it's like if you put it on a pen, because you're handing out promo pens, right? See what it looks like if it's, I can't even imagine all the things to tell you to think about, but you need to think about it that way. Herbie? A hairpin. Yes. There. Yes, exactly. So, and then look at what your competitors are doing. To tell you the truth, sometimes I hate to do that. I actually won't look at competitor logos, to be honest with you, because I feel like you can't get it out of your mind then. I don't even like to look at it. I don't even want to know, like just don't let me see it. And then, of course, different media. We talked about it. T-shirts, the side of trucks. I mean, think how much mileage, oh, sorry for this pun I'm saying. Think how much mileage you're going to get out of your brand if you put your logo on the fleet of Alexander Wang trucks delivering the clothes to the department stores, or on the side of a mug, or on the side of a phone, or on, what devices are these going to show up on? Think about all the uses for it. And then this is a lecture I've been doing a long time, and I think that sometimes each of you doesn't really think about what the intention is when you design a logo. It needs to have meaning. So it's not enough to pick a face and a typeface and think that that suffices, because you can look at these logos here where they took maybe Times italic, for all I know, and an orb is a sphere, right? So they probably manipulated this R to create the illusion of that sphere by drawing in an Illustrator. I love this pillar logo. And that, again, is just taking maybe a typeface that you have and adapting it to enhance your message. And I love Scoobology. I just think that's just a hoot. And I think that if you took that super small, you might not get all the letters, but you get the message of it, right? And jigsaw, right? Again, think often about positive, negative spaces. Look between the G and the S. A lot of times you can find symbols in DaFont. If you're not good at graphics, that might be able to help you. Positive, negative space. I really love this one for a golf club. Can you see it in the M? Right? And if you look at the S, what they've done to the S, which looks like an S and a G, right? For a company name, this Still Waters is actually, I gotta pull this up. That's my fave, which is that one. Again, what's the meaning behind it? And then there's a beautiful article to inspire you here. Let's go. It's back to here. To Logos with Hidden Meaning. This is a wonderful article and resource to inspire you, because I think that we can't do things in a vacuum. And if you look at this amazing golf club, you can see the Trojan with the helmet, but you can also see the golfer, and you can also see the face profile. Y'all see that? That's breathtaking. I'm not that smart to come up with that. But maybe you are. You know, maybe when you doodle enough, you know, I know you all look at thumbnail sketches of 20 and you think, oh my God, how many do that? Or 50, it says 50. But once you start doodling and once you talk out loud to yourself of, okay, what's the name of this golf club? Oh, it's called Spartan. Well, what are Spartans? They're Trojans. They're, they're the warriors against the Trojans. I said that wrong. And they're people and they're golfers, and you start doodling things and you start to see things as you look at positive, negative space. And what's the Tour de France about? Well, it's about bicycles. So now you pick a typeface that you love, but you start to think, what's the intention of it? And it's about bicycles, and gosh, if I just reshape that R a little bit, then I've got a person riding the bike, right? And then you look at Yoga Australia, and okay, so she's doing, what's that pose? Who does yoga? What's it called? It's not tree. Tree's where you put your leg on your, nobody knows? I feel better now. That's good. All right, but you can see the continent of Australia in her negative space, right? Everybody follow that? Can you see it now that I say it? Do I need to tell you what I'm seeing? Or you're finding them? You're finding them, right? Okay. Flight Finder. I don't know. Help me with this one. I mean, I see the airplane, but is there more to it? Oh, the 2 Fs. Thank you. I kept staring at it like, what am I missing here? And then this one I thought, oh, how sweet is that? But it's a really sweet logo, but if you make it really small, Coffee Night's going to disappear, right? So how do you make that a bold black and white logo is my question. Because if I shrink this down to a little half-inch size, which is now what it is, does it hold up, kind of thing? And how do you make it hold up? Yeah, Bo.
Would it be okay to have some kind of alternate logo design, like instead of Coffee Night to have C and an M?
I absolutely think so. Why not? Right. Why not? Why not? Yes. And that's kind of back to here, where you decide what the alternates are, because you are the ultimate style guide guru dictator. And you get to decide how things get used when things get difficult. And that's why you have a style guide. When your logo goes down below a ½ inch, you use this version. When the logo is billboard size and you've got a horizontal format, you use this version. And you make the rules. And you think them through. Nobody's going to tell you. I am not going to tell you. Which is why I want you all to go to style guides and start to look at them. This one you can't see very well small, I don't think. But it's called Lion Bird. But bigger you can see it, right? Like, these are amazing. These are like genius designers. And this one I kind of looked at and thought, Yeah, there you go. I kind of thought, yeah, so. And then I was like, oh, right. And just like so much fun. They're so much fun. And you can't come up with these beautiful ideas without telling your story, without knowing what's behind it, without being clear where you're headed with it. This is lovely too, right?
Looks like Hillary's logo.
John, don't say that with disdain. I know you. But see, and the Bronx Zoo, I didn't understand why the giraffe legs were so important, but they're part of the Bronx Zoo building. I think this one's just more fun than anything, right? And I don't really want to use your time anymore. I'm happy to use your time and talk about these because I'm enjoying this with you. I get really inspired. And if you start, and the whole reason you have all these brainstorming and the word associations and the image search and the mood boards is to fuel all your development of your logo designs. Is there anybody here who's designed a logo who could share it right now and tell a story about it? No? Okay. You can? Is that a maybe?
I did design my logo for 2 of them for myself. I don't know if it necessarily has a great story.
Do they have a story? Like, so does it have a story that we're going to go, oh, I get that?
I don't know. One's just kind of my signature doctor that I kind of came across.
Can I pull it up?
Sure.
Tell me how to get there.
Can we do a break here?
Oh, John wants to pause.